level of corruption in this country, like this one. There is a lady amepewa tender na amelipwa tayari 8 billion for 800 meters road. Yani mita 800 barabara ndani ya bandari ya Pwani kujenga, anapewa 8 billion. Kwa ufupi 100 meters. Sisi wote tumeenda shule zamani wakati wa PM, wakati wa interschools tukicheza ile mchezo ya kushindana mbio, unaambiwa 100 meters. Sasa 100 meters hiyo mara 8. Mtu amepewa jenge barabara size hiyo, mahali naweza kimbia na nirudi, amepewa bilioni 8. Yani kila mita 100 ni bilioni 1. Huyo mama amepewa jange ndani ya bandari. Hapa hatuna barabara. Mombasa Malindi highway mbovu, haimaliziki. Stadium hakuna. Barabara mjini hakuna. Governor kusifu tu, kudensi, kujiangalia na kutembea na kujipa sifa, show off. Hawezi uliza hizi vitu. This is the highest level of corruption. Mimi nimeshtuka sana. Na niko na dozi ya mingi. Sio hiyo peke yake. Huyo mama amepewa zingine. Niko na mingi zaidi. This time lazima tuulizane maswali. Utapatiaje huyu mama bandari ndani ya bandari ajenge mita 800 kwa bilioni 8? Hata wakati wa Uhuru Kenyatta haijafanyika. During Uhuru Kenyatta's time, I believe it was between 1.8 to 2 billion. During Kibaki's time, it was less than that. From Uhuru's time, 1.8 to 2 billion, to now President Ruto's time, from 1.8 to 2 billion to 8 billion. This is the most expensive road in the world. If it is not in the world, then it is the most expensive road in Kenya. A road that does not help anyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, among the many stories making headlines in the country, at the top of all the stories making headlines, as from the 3rd of July, the year 2026, is a story in reference to an headline by the Nation newspaper, in reference to a certain project that is currently going on in the coastal region under the Kenya Ports Authority leadership. A project where, according to the latest intel that we are receiving, has costed the Kenyan government an amount of 8.4 billion Kenyan shillings, all in building a 1.4 kilometer road. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is a reason this story is making headlines, because it beats logic how the government of Kenya can actually use an amount of 6 billion in building 1 kilometer of road. Now, the Daily Nation bold headline as of Friday reads, 6 billion per kilometer road raises eyebrows. And the picture on the front page is the picture of the current managing director of Kenya Ports Authority, Captain William Ruto. And this is the first article, the first paragraph of the article in reference to the story. Kenya Ports Authority is spending 8.3 billion on a 1.4 kilometer road inside the port of Mombasa, according to contract documents obtained by the Nation, which have clauses on price variations, raising questions whether taxpayers are getting value for money for the project, whose budget includes luxury items. And cost breakdown for KPA's 1.4 kilometer road. Description, and on the other column is the contract amount. Number 1, the actual road construction works clearly marked as 1.4 billion Kenyan shillings. Number 2 is concrete works, marked as 3.3 billion Kenyan shillings. Miscellaneous bridge works, they have been allocated 223 million Kenyan shillings. Piling works, 687 million. On the other hand is the preliminary and general items, also 686 million Kenyan shillings. Variations and contingencies, 968 million Kenyan shillings. HIV awareness, healthy and safety activities, allocated 22 million Kenyan shillings a year. At HIV awareness, healthy and safety activities, 22 million. Discount to be subtracted, an amount of 229,717,173. Taxes, 16% VAT, which is equal to 1.1 billion. I mean 1,150,968,505, totaling the whole total contract price is 8.3 billion Kenyan shillings. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is a reason this story is raising headlines. And also, the story became the topic of discussion after a whistleblower went ahead to blow the whistle on the alleged contract. The controversy surrounding a reported Kenya shillings 8.3 billion tender awarded by the Kenya Ports Authority for an 800-meter 0.8 kilometer road inside the port of Mombasa, which roughly translates to an amount of about 10 billion per kilometer. Now, the story has made national headlines when Nyali Member of Parliament Mohammed Ali publicly raised the alarm. He pointed out the exorbitant cost of the project and criticized the awarding of the tender. For context, standard global road construction costs a fraction of this, and the MP's revelation sparked intense public outrage over the alleged misuse of public funds at a time when many city roads remain in poor condition. Now, ladies and gentlemen, getting back to the quotation by the Nation newspaper, it states that actually an amount of 6 billion is being used for construction of only 1 kilometer. Now, let me ask you, how much do you think it would cost to construct 100-kilometer tarmac of road if we are to follow the same road? About 600 billion Kenyan shillings. I mean, that is over 500 billion Kenyan shillings. Now, mind you, the Rironi Mau Summit, because allow me to do a rough calculation, the Rironi Mau Summit, because it is the most talked about current road development by the Rutos administration, costed the Kenyan taxpayers an amount of 200 billion Kenyan shillings. That was the whole contract, 200 billion Kenyan shillings. Now, this the Rironi Mau Summit, the amount of kilometers that are being built for these 200 billion is equal to 233 kilometers. For how much? For 200 billion. If you do your rough calculation, you will realize that the Rironi Mau Summit per kilometer costed the Kenyan taxpayers an amount of 1.1 billion Kenyan shillings. Now imagine if we would go the road in which we would use the said allocation that has been used in the construction of the said 1 kilometer by the Kenya Ports Authority for an amount of 6 billion for a kilometer in the scenario of the Rironi Mau Summit. Now here comes your surprise. The Rironi Mau Summit is equal to 233 kilometers roughly. Now imagine all these kilometers being constructed, each kilometer for 6 billion Kenyan shillings. How much would the Rironi Mau Summit cost us? It would have costed us an amount of 1.398 trillion. 1.3 trillion Kenyan shillings. but it is costing us 200 billion. Now here is where you have to understand. The theft and the way this government of President William Ruto works is one that you cannot even sit down to comprehend. I mean, how foolish do they take the people of the Republic of Kenya? Constructing a 1 kilometer road for 6 billion Kenyan shillings. Now, imagine this road is 1.4 kilometer. The whole project is 1.4 kilometer. And the actual amount of money that the Kenya Ports Authority has allocated for this small project is equal to 8.3 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, if this project was to be constructed for the usual amount of money, how much do you think it would have costed the people of the Republic of Kenya? It would have costed us, if it goes so much, it would just reach about 1 billion Kenyan shillings. Or, in rough estimation, about 2 billion. 1.4 kilometer tarmac road contract is costing the taxpayers an amount of 8.3 billion. And yet, this same company or this same organization called the Kenya Ports Authority is at the verge of collapsing. Why? Because it has been operating in losses in the recent past. The Kenya Ports Authority has not been making profit. And so there are plans underway for this administration to privatize the said public company, the Kenya Ports Authority. Imagine if this company is using such an enormous amount of money for construction of a mere 1.4 kilometer piece of road. How can you tell us that this company is running on losses? Kampuni ambayo inatumia so much money, 6 billion for 1 kilometer. Na unatuambia that company is operating at a loss. What was the basis of awarding this tender? What was the tendering process? How many companies competed for building the said piece of road? How many? And what were the bids that these other companies presented before the Kenya Ports Authority, Captain William Ruto, went ahead to choose the company that is going to construct 1 kilometer for 6 billion Kenyan shillings? And yet there is somebody there seated telling us that hii serikali ya William Ruto inafanya kazi na watu wanaikosoa kwa sababu wanamchukia William Ruto. Tell me how we shall eradicate corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, remember the other day we received news that the government had actually received a 167 billion loan from World Bank. Are we together? Now, if the loans that this government has been getting, if this is how they have been using the money, then how should we pay those loans? Yet these people go ahead to award tenders like these ones. 6 billion for a 1 kilometer piece of road. Na wana expect sisi kama wananchi tulipe. Now, back to a rough calculation. The Nairobi Mombasa highway. How long is the Mombasa Nairobi highway? Nairobi highway project. Ladies and gentlemen, I really want us to do calculations so that you will understand. That road is equal to about 485 kilometers. And how much did the government use to construct the Mombasa, the government used in construction of the Mombasa Nairobi highway? That is the question that we ask. How much did the previous governments use? we are being told that that road actually costed us an amount of 464 billion. 464 billion Kenyan shillings. The road is equal to 485 kilometers. I want us to do just rough calculations so that you will understand the basis of where I'm coming from. 484 kilometers, and this costed us 464 billion, which means each kilometer was built for 1 billion Kenyan shillings. Now, let's try and do the calculation. If these 485 kilometers were built at the said price of 6 billion per kilometer, how much would it cost us? 2.9 trillion Kenyan shillings. That is why we are getting mad. That is over the financial budget, the yearly financial budget of this country in the year 2022 and 2020, in the year 2022 and in the year 2021. A whole yearly financial budget could have been used for just one singular project under William Ruto's administration. But because we had a government that hata kama ilikuwa corrupt, it cared about how much or the depths of incompetence and corruption that it could go, walitumia 464 billion Kenyan shillings. Mtazamaji, imagine spending 6 billion Kenyan shillings for 1 kilometer of road. And remember, the said guy who is the managing director of Kenya Ports Authority, goes by the name of Captain William Ruto, is the same individual that has been accused by the communities and the people of Mombasa of turning Kenya Ports Authority into a family business, where only currently he is being accused of only hiring people from one tribe, is Kalenjin tribe, or is he is hiring people that are related to him in one way or the other. Those that historically used to work for the Kenya Ports Authority were individuals that are originally from the coastal region, the Mijikenda community, the Kushaiti communities that we have there, the Arab communities that we have there. But now alibadilisha akaleta watu wake kutoka huko mahali aliwatoa. And this is the same guy that is constructing a 1.4 kilometer road for 8.3 billion Kenyan shillings. Tazamaji, tunaelekea wapi kama taifa? Nyayo tuko sasa. Nimekamilisha hii story, but I would love to hear your take in regards to this. Leave a comment on the comment section. See you in our next video. Na hii ndio kampuni wanatuambia it's operating at a loss na inahitaji kuwa privatized. How can this company be operating at a loss and then it's building a 1 kilometer road for 6 billion Kenyan shillings? Sisi si wajinga po.
Hamjambo watu wangu wa Mombasa. Niliweza kuzungumza na nyinyi wiki iliyopita, tukazungumza kuhusiana na kazi za bandari, nikawapatia dozia. Sasa nimerudi tena na narudi na ya pili. Viongozi wetu hapa Pwani na Mombasa kwa jumla wamekuwa ni watu wa kuzembea sana. Ni watu viongozi wakija, rais akija, mawaziri wakija, badala ya kuongea issues ambazo zina affect mwananchi wa kawaida, badala ya kuongea issues za hospitali, afya bora, miundo misingi, infrastructure, barabara zetu ambazo ni mbovu, kila nenda ukikuja mji wa Mombasa barabara ziko ovyo, mji unakaa kama zizi la ng'ombe. Badala ya kuongea kazi kwa wananchi, uwekezaji, haya mambo yote, badala ya kumwambia rais, wao ni kumpigia wimbo na kutingiza viuno na kusema tano tena. Now, as you are singing and dancing for that man, ujue tulipigania bandari ikabaki operations hapa. Imebaki, lakini sasa faida, rasilimali yote ya bandari inaenda nje. Yani ni bandari yetu kwa hapa tunaiona, lakini matunda yake yote yanaenda nje. I have never seen the highest level of corruption in this country like this one. There is a lady amepewa tender na amelipwa tayari 8 billion for 800 meters road. Yani mita 800 barabara ndani ya bandari ya Pwani kujenga, anapewa 8 billion. Kwa ufupi 100 meters, sisi wote tumeenda shule zamani wakati wa PM, wakati wa interschools tukicheza ile mchezo ya kushindana mbio, unaambiwa 100 meters. Sasa 100 meters hiyo mara 8. Mtu amepewa jenge barabara size hiyo, mahali naweza kimbia na nirudi, amepewa bilioni 8. Yani kila mita 100 ni bilioni 1. Huyo mama amepewa jange ndani ya bandari. Hapa hatuna barabara. Mombasa Malindi highway mbovu, haimaliziki. Stadium hakuna. Barabara mjini hakuna. Governor kusifu tu, kudensi, kujiangalia na kutembea na kujipa sifa, show off. Hawezi uliza hizi vitu. This is the highest level of corruption. Mimi nimeshtuka sana. Na niko na dozia mingi. Sio hiyo peke yake. Huyo mama amepewa zingine. Niko na mingi zaidi. This time lazima tuulizane maswali. Utapatiaje huyu mama bandari ndani ya bandari ajenge mita 800 kwa bilioni 8? Hata wakati wa Uhuru Kenyatta haijafanyika. During Uhuru Kenyatta's time, I believe it was between 1.8 to 2 billion. During Kibaki's time, it was less than that. From Uhuru's time, 1.8 to 2 billion, to now President Ruto's time, from 1.8 to 2 billion to 8 billion. This is the most expensive road in the world. If it is not in the world, then it is the most expensive road in Kenya. A road that does not help anyone. 800 meters inside the port of Mombasa. A lady from nowhere amepewa hiyo tenda. Hata nilisikia wazee wakisema hii bandari inafaa ipewe jina ya huko kwao kwa sababu biashara zote zinatoka huko kwao. Everybody is making a call inside this port. Biashara zinafanywa na watu wa nje, faida zinachukuliwa na watu wa nje. Hakuna kitu hapa ndani imebakia. And then some of the people have the audacity to kusimama hapa na kutuambia sijui we need to do this ABCD. Mimi nimewaambia this time hakuna huruma. Tutakufa na tai shingoni kama jeshi, na tutasema kufa dereva, kufa conductor. Bandari haiwezi kuwa yetu kwa jina, lakini kwa rasilimali si yetu. Asilimia kubwa ya nguvu kazi inafaa 70 to 80% of manpower it should be from coast region. Watoto wa hapa coast wapate kazi. Uwe Mjaluo, uwe Mwarabu, uwe Mswahili, uwe Mijikenda, uwe Mkisii, uwe Mkikuyu, uwe Msomali, uwe Mborana, uwe kabila zote za Kenya, Mluya, na unakaa within the area of coast region, unaishi hapa, lazima upewe kazi ndani ya bandari. 70 to 80% of manpower. Now here comes a lady. 8 billion, 800 meters. The most expensive road in Kenya and in the world, if I'm not wrong. And viongozi kila wakija hapa, barabara yetu imetusumbua hii hapa ya Mombasa Malindi, huku town potholes, kila mahali chafu, mji unakaa kama zizi la ng'ombe. Kazi yenu ni kudance na kutingiza viuno. We are going to drain the swamp. Hakuna mchezo safari. Na hii dozi ya utaiona hivi karibuni. Asanteni sana na Mungu awabariki.
And Kenya Ports Authority staff have expressed concern over the terms of their continued employment following the publication of tender paperwork for the lease of equipment and operating services and a framework contract for provision of skilled and semi-skilled labor. KPA Managing Director William Ruto having previously explained that under the Government-Owned Enterprises Act, the Kenya Ports Authority will act as landlord.
Operational staff of the Kenya Ports Authority are seeking clarity following the publication of tender documents for lease of equipment and operating services, including a framework contract for provision of skilled and semi-skilled labor. The tender document requiring the service provider to engage qualified and competent operators and technical personnel.
We are all aware now that we are under the new government-owned enterprise.
Under the framework, KPA would require an estimated workforce of 4,700 in equipment operators, operational support staff, and technical personnel.
It's like
I own the plot and I own the house, but I've rented you for the house only to live in that house. But the house belongs to me. The land belongs to me. So there is nothing like privatization. It's a landlord pot.
The labour transition options provided are the transfer of its employees to the private company or a lease of their services to the private company. A situation that has left KPA staff uneasy and seen them draw parallels to the scuppered JKIA Adani deal, insisting that they must be involved before any such action is taken. KPA Managing Director Captain William Ruto has previously explained that the cargo handling entity is not being privatized but would require private sector support to meet equipment requirements and growing cargo demands.
There are so many assets that are underutilized. Like what I was saying, number 23, 24, it requires over $600 million. Number 11 to 14, we need about $350,000. From number 1 to number 10, we need another $350 million.
Bidders are scheduled to undertake a site visit on May 20th. Olive Burrows, Citizen TV.